Hey friends, and welcome back. If you're new here, my name is Morgan and you are on my homestead here in Wyoming, where we love to do a lot of scratch cooking. We have a ton of animals and do a lot of gardening as well. So this week we are going to do another what's for dinner, but this week I'm actually going to talk you through everything and just kind of show you the process that I'm taking to make everything. This week we're going to do a few different recipes that I have not shared with you, starting tonight with meat pies. So Sam has actually visited New Zealand before and he loves meat pies, and then I was in Australia this past summer for work and I tried them as well and I thought they were delicious too. So I figured let's go ahead and make some meat pies. We're gonna do it a little bit different, but we're gonna do our very best, and I am going to be using elk for this one. So come along with me, let's go ahead and get going on these, and we're gonna be using the pie crust that we made in our last video. So if you haven't seen that video where we make pie crust together, definitely go check that out if this meat pie is something that you're interested in making, and let's go ahead and get cooking. All right, so tonight we are going for efficiency. It's already 4:40, so I want to go ahead and get this dinner pulled together as quickly as possible. And in here I just have some onions that I've been using throughout the week. So I am going to just dice up these onions. We ultimately are kind of making like a beef soup for this meat pie. A little bit thicker, more gravy versus soup, but ultimately I just want these onions to fade into the background. So because of that, I'm gonna cut them fairly small, and we will be pressure cooking our meat actually. So I'm going to not worry about size or anything. Ultimately, these will just kind of turn translucent and become really tender. Obviously, these types of stews are something that you would usually, cook all day, and you could definitely do that. You can brown your meat. I've done that in some of my other stew making videos if you want to check those out. But tonight we're going to do it just a little bit differently, and honestly, I think it's going to be great because we are going to have our pie crusts. So it's just going to be a really rich dinner. So I'm really looking forward to it. I'm just going to cut these carrots fairly small. Again, I want these to kind of fade to the background too and not really be the star of a show. We're just kind of going for flavor. So and if you have celery, you're going to want to throw that in as well. We don't have celery and actually never do. That is just one food that Sam does not like. He is not a picky eater at all, so I am more than happy to leave that out to accommodate. So if you have celery, go ahead and throw that in as well, but we're just going to do carrots and onions here tonight. All right, here is our vegetables all cut up. Just really roughly chopped. Now let's go ahead and get our meat prepped and we'll get cooking. All right, I have these packs of steak, and these, like I had mentioned, are elk steaks. And I pulled them out, honestly, not that long ago. I kind of forgot about them. So they're still a little bit frozen, which is no problem. That's yet another reason why we're going to use the pressure cooker. And I'm just going to cut this up into squares. That way it will cook a lot quicker. And I want this meat to be so tender. So we're gonna cut it into small chunks. That way it will cook faster and the pieces will be extremely tender. If you're going all day, you could definitely season this and then brown it. And then go ahead and leave it whole and just kind of cook it low and slow all day. But since we're gonna be pressure cooking this really pretty quickly, we're going to just leave it as is. A lot of pressure cookers also have the saute mode, so if you want, you can saute your meat in your pressure cooker, but mine does not, so I'm just going to do it like this tonight. And I just washed my hands, and now I'm gonna go in just quickly with some Montreal steak seasoning and just kind of coat these with that. All right, so into our Instant Pot, I'm gonna add about a half a cup of beef broth, maybe a little bit more. We'll do a half a can of beef broth. I'm gonna add in our carrots and onions. About 2 tablespoons of tomato paste, or a little more. Our meat. A splash of red wine. And ideally some fresh garlic, but I don't have any, so powdered's gonna work. I'm gonna add in just a little bit more beef broth and a few shakes of Worcestershire. Set it to pressure. We're gonna go high for 50 minutes and start. All right, we're gonna go ahead and get the pie crust rolled out. And these are the pie crusts we made together in our last video. So if you're curious on how to make homemade pie crust, you can definitely go check that out. And the thing with pie crusts, homemade in particular, is they like to stick, so you gotta keep them moving. So, oopsie. We're just gonna start rolling. And then again, I don't roll too many times in one place about spinning it or turning, just because, whoops. Just because I don't want to deal with a stuck pie crust. So you just want to continue to keep it moving. And pie crust, because everything is so cold, they are pretty slow. So I'm going to go ahead and just keep working this back and forth. And then I will show you the next step. So size-wise, this is about the best I can do. So now I'm going to just cut this, and I want to be able to make, let's see. I'm trying to get 6 pies out of this piece. Cool. So now I'm just using this because it's a bit bigger than the size of my pie tin, and I want to make sure it's nice and round. So I'm just going to now cut all the way around this. And then here is my first piece of pie dough. Looks perfect. See all those flakes in there of butter? That's exactly what we want. And then I just have my tin, and I'm going to stick, for now I'm just going to stick it on the tin. And we're going to move on to the next one. Again, trying to move fairly quickly so everything stays nice and cold. Alright, then I'm going to ball this up and put this in the fridge for a little bit just to let it reset, and then we can make a little bit more dough out of this. I just need it to harden back up, woo! So we don't lose those butter pieces. And then here are all of our pastries. And I'm gonna go ahead and just try to get each one in the tin like so. And you want to try to get all the bubbles out of the bottom. So now that I have the rounds, since I don't have, if I had a bigger cookie cutter, I would use that, but I don't. So now I'm just gonna turn these into bigger circles. All right, so our meat is done. I'm gonna go ahead and just spoon it out. Oh yeah, nice and tender. I'm gonna go ahead and just spoon it out. And then it's so tender, I can just take a fork in here and break it all up. I'm breaking up the carrots, the meat, everything. All right, that looks perfect. We're gonna leave this here for a second and go get our gravy going. I'm gonna dump in our broth. And then in here, I'm mixing together equal parts cornstarch and water. We're making a slurry. And then we're just going to dump that in and then let this come to a boil. The cornstarch is going to cause this gravy mixture to thicken. If we were to have just put the cornstarch in without mixing it with the water and making that slurry, it would have created a lot of like lumps, so you want to make sure to mix it with the water first. Then we want the meat to be nice and moist, but obviously not too runny, so I just add in a little bit of the gravy and give that a good mix. You can definitely just do this to your liking, however much gravy you want. That is perfect. And then next you'll notice a little surprise. Would you look at that? We have a large pie crust instead of 6 smalls. I totally gave up on the 6 small pie crusts and decided this was a better direction to go. They were just falling in and I was afraid they weren't going to work. So we actually made a dessert out of the 6 small pie crusts that I had made. I literally just put in banana slices, chocolate chips, and brown sugar into the pie crust and baked those up, and whew, they were delicious. But you can see here we're just spreading in the filling and then putting the top layer of the pie crust over. I accidentally had this in the freezer for just a little bit too long, so the pie crust got a little bit hard, which made it harder to work with, but once it got back to room temperature, I was able to just roll it, and I did cut down on some of the pieces that were too long, so you can see those scraps sitting there. Then you want to just go ahead and score the top of your pie so that you can get the heat out, and then we're going to do a quick little egg wash on top. And then I threw mine in the oven at, I think, 400 degrees, and it probably took about 45 minutes to cook. And there is our meat pie. Sam had just gotten home from work and was telling me about his day, so you can't hear the pie crust, but it was so crispy, so delicious, and this was definitely a big hit. And other than it being big, was definitely similar to the meat pies that I had in Australia. So I would call that a huge win. You can see here the pie held together really nicely. All right, you guys, this is everything that was left after our dinner. As you can see, it held together really well. The crust was super crusty, flaky, and it was super, super good. I put ketchup on mine, and Sam put the gravy on his, and then here is how our little desserts turned out. So honestly, they're really good. They're not super sweet, but just sweet enough. So we're gonna enjoy some dessert and we'll see you in the next one. All right, friends, we are back with another dinner tonight. The meat pies were absolutely phenomenal last night. We definitely loved those, and I actually really enjoyed making it into the bigger version versus the small one. It held together really nicely. We were able to just kind of cut little slices like a pie, and it was so, so good. So that's a hit. We're having that for lunches today. But for dinner tonight, I'm gonna go ahead and get started. It's about 10 a.m. and tonight we are going to be having Milwaukee pork chops. This is one of those meals that I grew up on and I absolutely love, and it literally takes 3 ingredients, 4 if you want to count salt. So let's get that going. It's going to be one of the easiest crock pot dinners you have ever seen, and super, super delicious. All right, my 2 ingredients are going to be a light beer and ketchup. If you have homemade ketchup, that's going to be even better, but we don't have enough tomatoes, so you're just going to dump in 1 light beer. All we have here is Miller Lite, but you could use Coors, whatever you have. And then about a cup of ketchup. Maybe like a cup and a half. If you want this to be a little bit sweeter, you can add brown sugar, but we leave it here. And then I'm just going to mix that up a little bit. Then I just have some pork chops. They are still frozen, but they were on sale a couple weeks back at the grocery store, so I like to just buy big packs and then pre-portion them. So I think this is 2 pork chops, 3 pork chops. So I'm gonna lay that in there, put put the lid on, and then I'm gonna cook mine for, let's see, what time is it? Yep, 8 hours I think will be perfect. And I will show you what this looks like when it's all done. All right, this is all done. It's been going for a full 8 hours. So next what I'm gonna do is just take our pork chops out, and they're literally just falling apart, which is exactly what we want. And then I'm gonna turn this back onto high. And then I went ahead and made a slurry mixture just like we did with our meat pies. So equal parts cornstarch and water. I'm going to whisk that in. There's still a little piece of meat in there, but that's totally fine. And then I'm just gonna let this heat up and continue to stir, and then this sauce will thicken, and this is gonna become our gravy. All right, our rice is done. It's perfect. So all we're gonna do for this is just put some rice in the bowl. And you could do this without rice, you could do this on cauliflower rice, a veggie, whatever you want. And then I'm gonna grab a spoon, and I did put the pork chops back in. And then I'm just gonna lay a pork chop on top, and then now that this sauce has really thickened, I kind of just use that as like a gravy. There we have it. The easiest pork chop recipe ever, Milwaukee pork chops. All right, so when I eat it, I like to break it up into little pieces of pork and just get some of that sauce on there, and that's it. I'm telling you, if you have picky eaters or just looking for something different, this is it. I think it is so good. I mean, this was my favorite meal growing up. Like on my birthdays, I would ask for this meal. It was either this or spaghetti. So I'm telling you, this is so good. It's so easy. And I think it's something that not a lot of people have ever had. So if you have kids, give it a try. Let me know their thoughts and if they like it. And I'm gonna go sit down and enjoy my dinner. So good. All right, friends, welcome back to another evening of What's for Dinner. Tonight, we are going to be making fajita quesadillas. So I laid out some elk to defrost this morning, so that's ready to go. We're gonna pull out some of our garden onions, some peppers, and just make some quick little quesadillas. So tonight's super, super easy. It's beautiful out. I wanna make sure we're spending most of our time outside, so let's go ahead and get our fajitas all made up. All right. I just had this onion that's been in the refrigerator, and I want to make sure we get this all used up. So, because it's been in the fridge for a while, I'm just going to take a small little slice off of both ends just because they're a little bit dry. Perfect, and then I'm going to cut them this way. Normally when I cut things, onions, I cut them this way, but because we're kind of caramelizing, you want to actually cut them this direction. Just helps keep the shape. Totally up to you, whatever you want to do. I just prefer them that way. And I think we'll take out one more onion from the freezer just because I feel like fajitas well, actually that's probably enough. We'll add a couple peppers to that. And then I have our elk meat here. So I'm just gonna pull this out. All right, and then I'm just going to slice our steak into little strips. I just find it's easier to cook this way. You can definitely cook them full steak and then slice it. I just prefer to do it this way when I'm in a bit more of a hurry. And I feel like it also with like fajitas helps every piece marinate a little bit better. So obviously if we were cooking like a full steak, I would never, and you want to make sure you're cutting against the grain. of the steak, meaning the fibers, so that when you pull it, let's see if you can see that, you just have these little fibers to chew through, which makes it a lot more tender. All right, there's our steak. I'm gonna get this all cleaned up. Next, we're going to just add in some olive oil. And if you're using beef, you might not need the olive oil. Elk is super, super lean, so I like to add in some kind of fat. And then just a splash of lime juice. And then I'm gonna sprinkle on just this mixture I have of chili powder, cumin, salt, pepper, garlic. Give that a mix. All right, I'm just going to cover this, put this back in the fridge, and let it marinate for like an hour or so. All right, one thing I love about having canned salsa on the shelf is you can pull a guac together so quickly. So, oops, I got still a little piece of skin in there. This avocado is incredibly ripe. So I'm just going to pull together a really quick guac. And all I do for that is cut up one avocado. This one is incredibly ripe. There we go. Crack open a jar of our salsa. And then I'm just gonna spoon a little bit of that in here. If you're curious how we made this salsa, I will link a video about that one. That is done just like that. Let's go ahead and get our tortillas and our fajita mixture cooking. All right, for tortillas, these are my favorite. Upside down for you. Tortilla land, they're just raw tortillas, so all you do is just heat them up in a pan for about a minute on each side. Alright, you can see the tortillas kind of start to like bubble up, and that's how I know it's time to flip them. Probably use like a spatula or something, but I just use my hand. Our pan is hot. I'm going to go ahead and get our fajita meat laid down. Then once our steak was pretty much fully cooked, I scoot it over to the side and add in our vegetables. So our onions and peppers, just gave it a little bit of salt, and then just continued to stir these every now and again until they were golden and brown. And here is a final look into how our quesadillas turned out. These were absolutely delicious. All right, you guys, we're gonna go enjoy our fajita quesadillas. Thank you so much for joining us this week. I hope you enjoyed this What's for Dinner. A little bit different, rather than asking us questions and us answering. I just took you along, kind of talked you through everything that we were doing. So I hope you enjoyed. Thank you so much for being here and taking time out of your day to hang out with me. If you liked today's video, please consider giving it a thumbs up. And if you haven't already, subscribing so you don't miss any other cooking, gardening, homesteading videos to come in the future. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate each and every one of you, and I will catch you in the next one. Bye, friend.